Hi. In this video, I want to talk about how long therapy takes. And to answer this question, we need to look at how therapy works. So one of the explanations for how therapy works, this is not the only explanation, but it's one of the explanations, is that as children, all of us go through some very deep, painful, overwhelming emotional experiences, right? But as children, we do not have healthy, functional ways of dealing with these emotions. No one teaches us, no one tells us how to comfort ourselves, soothe ourselves during these overwhelming emotional experiences. So our minds, to protect ourselves in order to survive, our bodies, our minds, come up with ways to protect ourselves from these deeply overwhelming experiences. Let's call them defenses. Defenses against deeply painful experiences. Now, these defenses that our minds, our bodies come up with, they are helpful in childhood because we don't have better ways in childhood. But as we grow up into adults, these defenses are no longer required. But they continue to operate. We have learned these defenses and we continue to protect ourselves from emotional experiences, overwhelming experiences, using these defenses. It happens unconsciously, automatically. And this becomes another source of suffering. For example, let's say as a child, I was deeply afraid of being abandoned or being rejected. Now, in order to, let's say, protect myself from this rejection or abandonment, what I end up doing is giving into people's requests, giving into people's demands, trying to please people. So, quote unquote, pleasing people. Now, at that time, as a child, this helped me survive. Trying to please people helped me survive, helped me stay safe, stay comforted. But as an adult, I no longer need to please people, but I continue to do that because it has become a habitual pattern. And that starts affecting my relationships, my romantic relationships, my relationship with my friends, with my workplace colleagues. So I start suffering because of this tendency to please people. So I built a defense against rejection, the pain of rejection, pain of abandonment, and that's why I'm suffering in the present situation. I built these defenses back as a child, but I'm suffering because of which helped me survive back then, but I'm suffering because of them right now. What we are trying to do in therapy is unlearn these defenses and get back in touch with that deeply overwhelming, painful emotional experience that we had as a child and continue to have as an adult, and work through that painful experience. So we are getting back in touch with our natural emotions which are part of our natural, which are a natural part of our existence, but we sort of learn to protect against these emotions. When we get back in touch with these emotions, we learn first that these emotions are safe, it's okay to have them, these emotions make us human, and then when we are not defending ourselves against these emotions through mechanisms like people pleasing, or there are a million other mechanisms, then we stop suffering. While there is pain, which inevitably is a part of life, it's natural, but we are not suffering anymore. So what we are trying to do in therapy is unlearn these defenses, unlearn these habitual patterns, which reduces our suffering. And these patterns are deeply ingrained. We learned them in our childhood. So it takes time, it takes effort to unlearn them. And it's also sometimes very uncomfortable to let go of your defenses and get back in touch with an overwhelming, painful experience. It can bring up a lot of grief. So the point is that therapy takes time. Therapy takes time and effort. It might be an uncomfortable process to unlearn some habitual patterns and to finally make progress in terms of reducing suffering. To unlearn habitual patterns that create suffering, that increase suffering, and to unlearn them and then finally reduce suffering and live with the natural pain that is part of life. But this pain is somewhat beautiful. It's natural. It's organic. It's what makes us human. It what connects us with ourselves and with other people. So it's a beautiful experience. So therapy takes time because of this reason, and it can take a long time. It can be a long-term process, but it's at the same time it's very much worth it. And another aspect about this whole thing is that progress in therapy can sometimes be non-linear, which means that um, when we are unlearning these patterns, it can be very uncomfortable. So we make progress and sort of let go of our defenses, but then it gets uncomfortable when we let go of those differences and the painful experiences start coming up. So it becomes very uncomfortable. So it's very natural for us to sort of take a step back. So that's why often progress in therapy is not linear. So it often seems like we take a step forward, but then we sort of step back. So some progress happens, then some regression happens, and then we persist through the process and make more progress, and finally we make some significant progress which is permanent in nature. So I hope this explains how long therapy takes, how it works, and how it can the progress in therapy can sometimes look non-linear.